All right, this will be the final book assignment for this week. It's page, 505. We're doing 1 through 20. It's called the Quadratic Formula. Okay, quadratic, I probably should have mentioned this on Monday, but it's just a fancy way of saying an equation or function that has x squared in it. So back in October or something, we had a chapter where probably September, we solved equations for x, right? And we just had a normal x, we got x by itself. So quadratic equations have an x squared somewhere in there. So you have to do a little bit more usually to get x by itself. And we've learned two ways to do that so far. On Monday we did factoring, like where we split it into parentheses and we said x could be this or this to make this equal to 0. That's what we did on Monday. Yesterday we did just solving simple quadratic equations like that just have an x squared and not an x. And we did that by getting x squared by itself, and then we took the square root of both sides. And those two methods only work on certain types of problems. Okay, quadratic formula, and okay, you guys might have noticed that I skipped a couple lessons. So we skipped the method called completing the square. And the reason that I did that is because completing the square is kind of the trickier way of doing the quadratic formula. What they did was they kind of said, well, the quadratic formula uses all the tricks from completing the square and kind of puts it into this simple little formula. So anyway, it's just easier and it's the same thing and it works. Quadratic formula works for any kind of quadratic equation. So if you don't remember the little tricks from Monday and Tuesday, this one will work. Anytime you have an equation with an x squared in it, this one will do it. Okay? Okay, so quadratic just means something with an x squared in it. So it might be x squared plus 3x minus 7 equals 0. Okay, that looks like something we did on Monday. However, this does not factor. And factoring doesn't break down into two nice parentheses this times this. It would be some kind of really weird answer that factoring would not be able to get to us. It's not simple enough to get x squared by itself because it has this x term. So we're going to have to learn the final method that actually works for everything. It's not always the easiest way to do it, but it is the way that works every time. It's called the quadratic formula. And it's in your book on the top of page 503. It's probably after the Pythagorean theorem, it's like the most famous math thing because it gets used a lot. And actually, let me back up. Okay. This is an example of a quadratic equation or quadratic function. Those two phrases are kind of interchangeable. It's got the x squared in it, right? So this is a quadratic. These numbers in front and the constant are called coefficients. Okay? The number in front of the x squared and the x, and then this number is also called a coefficient. It just means the numbers in front. And for the quadratic formula, if you have them in order, x squared and x and then the constant, we're going to think of this first one as a, b, and c. So for this one, a is 3, b is -5, and c is 4. Okay? A, b, and c. So a is the first coefficient, b is the second, c is the third. If they don't have it written in the normal order, you got to put it in the normal order for this A, B, and C thing. And anyways, so we need to know the A, B, and C to use the quadratic formula because here's the quadratic formula. Maybe I should write it off over here so I can refer to it later actually. Yeah, I'll start right here. All right. There it is in all its glory. So negative b. Notice, by the way, on my example up here, I put a minus 5x and I called b negative 5. So you do need to look at the sign in front. If it's a plus, it's like a positive. If it's a minus, it's like a negative. Okay. So negative b, we would plug in negative 5 plus or minus square root of b squared. Anything squared is going to come out positive. Minus 4 times a times c, and all that is divided by 2 times a. Okay, you plug all this in. Usually you can simplify a little bit. We'll see these on the see that in the examples, and it might turn into a fraction or something weird decimal thing, or it might turn into a normal number. It can turn into all kinds of things. Might turn into something that's not real, something weird. But basically you plug all those numbers in and it gives you your two answers. Remember, on all these problems that we've been doing Monday and Tuesday, they've had like two answers normally. And this gives us two answers because on one of them you use a plus this divided by this. That's one answer. And the other one's a minus this divided by this. That's the second answer. So this kind of represents the two different answers. Very rarely, occasionally, the two answers will actually be the same thing, so it's like one answer. That did happen once or twice to us on the other assignments, and I'm sure it will on this one too. Okay, it's kind of hard for you to understand what the heck is going on until we actually do the examples. So let's do number one. Let's just jump right in there. Number one, you actually don't have to do the problem. This is going to be really quick. And we are going to 20 on this. I think I said that already. All right, I'm going to shift this over here so it's not in my way. This is something that you'll probably want to have eventually memorized. I'm not completely sure, but I think you will do problems that use this on the ACT, which would be like your junior year of high school. Remember, you're going to take Algebra 2, so you're going to have to look at this again. But I can't remember if they give you, I'm doubting they do give you that. I think you have to either know this by heart, or you have to be able to do the factoring method probably. Anyway, this is like a guaranteed ACT question, like 3 out of 60 or something like that. Pythagorean theorem, which we did like last week or 2 weeks ago, that's guaranteed 2 or 3 questions on the ACT. So where am I at? We don't need that. Okay. On number one, they're not asking us to solve it. It's kind of like the warm-up. They're just asking us to say what's A, B, and C. So A is the number, remember, I just erased my example. A is the number in front of the x squared. B is the number in front of the x. C is the other number, the constant. So on number one, there's not really anything for me to do, so I'm just going to talk through it. There's no number on the x squared. So if there's no number in front of x squared, what number is in front of x squared? 1. So number 1, A is 1. B is the number in front of the x, and I see a 6. C is the other number, the constant, and I see a 5. Okay, so that's number 1. Easy peasy. Got it? Number 3. All right. Probably going to try to throw some curveballs at us, and I see one on number 3. Number 3 says x squared plus 5x equals negative 6. I'm going to write that down. Okay, well, what's A on this one? Same as number 1. It's a 1. What's B? Right there, 5. Okay, what's C? This is the tricky one. Okay, just like Monday's assignment, we really need everything to be in the form of like this, like where there's nothing on the right side. Everything's on the left side and in order. So we need it to be our A, our B, and our C on the left side to get it right. So I need the right side to be a 0. How do I get rid of minus 6? Plus 6. So what we would have is on the left side is that. So C is not actually negative 6. You move it, add 6, move it over. It's actually a positive 6. So, and if you plug a negative 6 into your problem, your answer is just going to be totally wrong. That's not good. So you do need to be careful with that. All right, number 5. This has another trick we haven't seen. W squared minus 6 equals 0. Okay, what is the A value? What is the B value? And what is the C value? Okay, just like 1 and 3, what's the A value? No number there, so there's a 1 right there. Okay, what's the B value? Is it negative 6? No, it's not negative 6. Okay, normally the middle term should just have like 3W or 2W or something. There is no W term in there. That means there's like a 0W. There's nothing in there for the W term. So the B value for this one is actually a 0. Okay, the minus 6, that's like the last term. That's the constant. So C is negative 6. Okay, so you see they're missing one of the terms. They got the first term, they've got the last term. They don't have the normal W term in the middle. So the B value for the middle term is 0, since there is no middle term. All right. Normally they will look like number 1, just in order, 1, 6, 5, just like number 1. Okay. Sometimes they don't have that middle term, like they take out the 6x. So that would be like a 0x. That'd be like a 0 in the middle. All right. Let's jump to 7. 7 we're actually solving. So to solve, we're going to start by identifying the A, B, and C. I'm going to go ahead and write 7 down. X squared plus 6x plus 8. Okay, before I jump into this, let me make the note that I can tell this is actually factor because 4 times 2 plus 4 plus 2, like Mondays, okay? But we are using quadratic formula, so I'm going to use that. Quadratic formula, once you use it, it's not too bad once you get used to it. So we're going to start like 1 through 6. We're going to say, what's my A, B, and C? And they wrote it nice and neat for us. So A is 1, B is 6, C is 8. So A is 1, B is 6, C is 8. Now I haven't actually used this to solve a problem yet, so this will be the first time. So I'm going to use the quadratic formula. So here I go. Negative B. B is 6, so I'm going to put negative 6. Plus or minus square root. B squared. What's 6? B is 6. So 6 squared, 6 times 6 is 36. Minus, I went and put the minus there, 4 times A times C. So what is 4 times 1 times 8? Now I could write in there 4 times 1 times 8. Usually I just do it and then write that in there. It's kind of like how much work do you want to show exactly. To start with, I guess since this is our first one, I'll go really slowly. 4 times 1 times 8. 4 times 1 is 4 times 8 is 32. Actually, I'll come back. I'll write that later because I still haven't done the bottom here. This is all over 2 times A. And A is 1, so 2 times 1 is just 2. Okay. Now, we got some more work to do. 4 times 1 times 8 is 32. So I'm going to put that out here, I guess. This is negative 6 plus or minus square root of 36 minus 32 over 2. All right, what else can I do? 36 minus 32 is 4. Negative 6 plus or minus square root of 4 over 2. Can I simplify more? Yes. What is the square root of 4? What times what equals 4? 2. So negative 6 plus or minus 2 over 2. Can I simplify that some more? Yes. Okay, so basically what I'm going to do at this point is negative 6 plus 2 divided by 2. That's one answer. Then I'm going to do negative 6 minus 2 divided by 2. That's my second answer. So I'm going to get two normal numbers here. Okay, negative 6 plus 2 is negative 4. Divided by 2 is negative 2. Now I'm going to use the minus instead of the plus right there. Negative 6 minus 2 is negative 8. Divided by 2 is negative 4. Okay, those are the two answers. Make sure you show your work on this because it's a lot of steps. And if I see that you're mostly doing it right, I'll still give you half credit. If I can tell, like if you just made one tiny little mistake, I don't want to give you no credit because you just put the wrong answer and then I have no idea how you got it. And anyways, show some work. So that would be the answer. And if you plug either of those in, negative 2 or negative 4, you'll see that it works in this equation. I'll plug in negative 2 just for fun. So negative 2 squared is positive 4. 6 times negative 2 is negative 12. 4 plus negative 12 is negative 8. Plus 8 is 0. So negative 2 works. And if you plug in a negative 4, you should get that it works also. So that's it. Number 7. So it took a lot of space, didn't it? So these problems can take a lot. Now I could have kind of skipped a little bit of work here, but the more you skip, the more likely you are to make a mistake also. So, all right, number 9. All right, number 9, x squared plus 8x plus 15. Looks like 7 through 15, all these answers are going to be pretty straightforward. So that means, or 7 through 16, that means all these problems actually could have been factored. But on the B section there, the answers are messy, which means they couldn't have been factored, and the only way we could have solved them is with the quadratic formula. So anyway, quadratic formula works on everything, the factoring, and taking the square root of both sides. That only works on simpler problems. Okay, number 9. Here we go. We need our A, B, and C for the quadratic formula. What is A? 1. What is B? 8. What is C? 15. Okay, so I'm going to plug those in. Negative B is negative 8. Plus or minus square root of B squared. 8 squared is 64. Minus, okay, I'm going to do this all at once. What's 4 times A times C? 4 times 1 times 15. 4 times 1 is 4. 4 times 15 is 60. See another 4 in our future. All right, over 2 times 1 is 2. Hopefully you guys got that. If my explanation does confuse you, you might just skip the video back a little bit and see if you can figure out what you missed. Anyways, 64 minus 60, what would that be? That'd be 4, right? So I have negative 8 plus or minus square root of 4 over 2. Square root of 4 is 2, negative 8. Okay, and then just like last time, negative 8 plus 2 is negative 6. Divided by 2 is negative 3. Negative 8 minus 2 is negative 10. Divided by 2, negative 5. All right, and that would give us our two answers. Like I said, most of these should have two answers unless you get Very rarely you'll get the same answer on both of them. Now it looks like 15 and 16 that's going to happen. Basically, you're going to have to, for that to happen, you have to get a 0 under the square root. And that's going to happen on 15, 16. So they will have one answer, but everything else looks like 2, I think. It's kind of a rare occurrence. All right, that's 9. Okay, number 11. A squared minus 9 equals 0. Okay, 11 is one of those problems that would be much easier if you remember how to do it on Monday or even Tuesday, both of those methods. Because it factors as a square minus a square, but also you can get a squared by itself by just adding 9, square root both sides. But we're doing quadratic formula, we're following the directions, and so we're going to do that. Okay, what's our a value? That means the number in front of the squared term. That's a 1. What's the b value? There is no middle term. There's no a term, just normal a. So the b value is 0. What's the c value? -9. All right, here we go. Plugging those in. That's a, b, c. So negative b would be -0 or just 0, plus or minus square root of 0 squared minus 4 times a times c. 4 times 1 is 4 times -9 is -36. How am I going to write that? I'll just put it like that. Over 2 times 1 is 2. Okay, the a value is not necessarily always 1. When we get to the b section, it'll change. Just on these simpler problems, it usually is. So, okay. What can I do? 0 minus -36. That actually means like plus 36. So that's under the square root, 36. And what is the square root of 36? 6. So I'll put it down here. Okay, so on this problem, if the b value is 0, it's not doing anything. 0 plus or minus 6. That's just plus or minus 6. So anyway, 0 plus 6 divided by 2 is 3. 0 minus 6 divided by 2 is -3. Okay, so the answer is plus or minus 3. Basically, it's just plus or minus 6 divided by 2. Positive 3, -3. All right, 13. Two c squared minus c minus 3 equals 0. Forgot. Minus c minus 3 equals 0. All right, what is our a value? 2. What is our b value? No number, -1. What's our c value? -3. Okay, plugging it in. Negative b would be -1. There's a negative already out there, and then we're putting a negative in there, so it's -1. And what is -1? Positive 1. Plus or minus square root of b squared. So that would be like -1 squared. Okay, that's what the b squared would be. So that's -1 times -1, positive 1. Minus 4 times a times c. 4 times 2 is 8. We've got to put the minus. 8 times -3 is -24. Another way you could do this is think of this as a -4 times 2 times -3, and then that would make a positive 24. So you could just put plus 24 right there. Either way, we're going to get plus 24. Okay, over 2 times a, 2 times 2 is 4. Okay, inside the square root, 1 plus 24 is 25. And what is the square root of 25? 5. Okay, so we got 1 plus 5 is 6. 6 divided by 4, you could say is 6 fourths, but we wouldn't do that. We would divide both of those by 2 and say it's 3 halves. Okay, it didn't come out nicely. It's a fraction. It's okay. We're going to let it happen. Okay, that's one of the answers, and then we're going to do 1 minus 5, which is negative 4, divided by 4, which is negative 1. Okay, I don't really care if you put a mixed number on this or an improper, even a decimal, in this case 1.5. Later on the decimals would be would be infinite and messy, so I wouldn't want that, but in this case it doesn't matter. So there's more than one way to write that, 3 over 2. Okay, number 15. Okay, remember, first thing we're going to do is look for A, B, and C. Okay, 15's got a little bit of a trick, the same trick that number 3 had. They didn't put the 9 on the right side, on the correct side, I should say. So we need it to be over here with everybody else so we can have our A, B, and C ordered out. So how do I get rid of a negative 9 over here? I add a positive 9, so plus 9. So really what we're looking at is plus 9 equals 0. So our A is 1, B is negative 6, C is 9, positive 9. If you get the positive and negative mixed up, everything's going to be messed up and you'll get the wrong answer. Okay, so here we go. Negative B, negative 6, positive 6, plus or minus, square root of B squared, negative 6 times negative 6, minus 4 times A times 1 is 4 times C times 9 is 36 over 2 times A, 2 times 1. Okay, something weird is happening on this one. We got 6 plus or minus. 36 minus 36 is 0. What's the square root of 0? 0. So 6 plus or minus 0 divided by 2. The plus or minus 0 is like doing nothing for us. So it's just 6 divided by 2 is 3. So this is one of the rare ones that has one answer. And that happens when there's a 0 under the square root because the plus or minus becomes not important. So anyway, 15, 16 has the same thing. 15 and 16, I believe, are the only ones like that. Okay. 17 through 20, kind of the same thing. 19 and 20, we're going to get a little bit messy answers. It's not going to be that bad. It's going to be kind of just as easy as the rest, really. The square roots just don't simplify. All right, 17. Two x squared minus 9x plus 4. Okay, so what do we start with? A, B, and C. So A, B, C. All right. So I need negative B, negative 9, positive 9, plus or minus square root of B squared, negative 9 times negative 9, 81, minus 4 times A times C. 4 times 2 times 4. 4 times 2 is 8, times 4 is 32. Over 2 times 2, 4. What is 81 minus 32? I believe that is 49. that will be under our square root. Does 49 have a square root? Yeah, so this is not a weird one. So it's 9 plus or minus square root of 49 is 7 over 4. Okay, so 9 plus 7 is 16 divided by 4. 4. And 9 minus 7 is 2. 2 divided by 4 is 2 fourths. But what's 2 fourths reduced to? Divided by 2 is 1/2. Okay, so actually 17 was kind of the same as the other problems. 19 is not. 19's weird. Alright. Not hard, just different. 19's not hard. 19 says 2y squared minus 5y equals -1. Okay, what's wrong with this one? -1's on the wrong side, so I'm going to do it in my head this time. I would have to add 1, so really it should be a +1 over here. So my A, B, and C would look like that, +1 instead of -1. Alright, so negative B is -5. We've been doing a lot of negatives, so that would be a +5 plus or minus square root of B squared. -5 times -5 is 25. Trying to get it to show up. Alright, minus 4 times A times C. 4 times 2 is 8. Times 1 is 8. Over 2 times 2. Okay. And then in the parentheses, or in the square root, it's what is 25 minus 8? 17. Okay. So, does the square root of 17 simplify? No. Not only does 4 times 4 is 16, nothing. So the actual square root of 17 would be like 4.12983, something weird that goes forever. So we're not going to write a decimal. We're going to leave it like that. Also make sure this number doesn't have any doubles in it, because if it did, we'd have to simplify it in that method. 20 is very, very similar to 19, like normal. So I can't really do 5 plus square root of 17 divided by 4 and without changing it to a decimal, a weird decimal, so I'm going to stop. Now, this still represents two answers, but it's going to look kind of like one because we're just leaving it with the plus minus. And that's it. We stop there. The end. Any questions? Great. All right. And that's all for the book assignments. I hope you guys got that, and let me know if you need any help, and I'll try and give you some help.